Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Happy New Year, Bartek.
Happy New Year, Ryan.
How are you going?
I'm going happy. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. I'm just enjoying being on break. Just no work.
No podcasting.
You know what? I actually did enjoy having a bit of time away from this podcast and my other podcast, Yum Yum. Just sitting back, watching whatever I want without having to think about it in terms of how do I talk about this in front of a microphone, and or how will I debate the quality of this against somebody else?
That's how everyone watches films normally.
I mean, did I ever tell you that I lost a friendship with someone because we walked out of the cinema and I did not like Ready Player One? And
You've
then, like,
told that story on the podcast a few times.
Then a week later, they phoned me up saying, I don't want to hang out anymore because you don't respect my taste. And I just was like, what? I thought Ready Player One was hilarious in terms of how much it sucked. I didn't say you sucked. And then he was like, I don't want to hear it. Steven Spielberg's great, and I just rolled my eyes, being like, okay, this isn't one of his good ones.
It's your second best Ready Player One story.
The funny thing is, I didn't even bitch about Steven Spielberg. I bitched about Ben Mendelsohn. I'm a big Mendelsohn fan, and Hollywood keeps wasting that guy. Keeps wasting that fucking talented guy. They keep just giving him bullshit.
But Ryan, what about your other Ready Player One story, where the guy in the front row was like, what a nice message.
Yeah. The movie ends, and the message is like, guys, make sure to turn off your internet every Tuesday. And he's like, what a lovely message. And then I laughed. So did my friend. He laughed. So what's the fucking problem? Okay, either way, we're spitting Polish likingly because we're always spitting, and we both happen to be Polish. Did you catch that, Bartek?
I was distracted by the Ready Player One talk, but I did catch it.
Let's see it again. We're going to spin Polish likingly because we're always spitting, and we both happen to be Polish, hence the names Ryan, very Polish, and Bartek, less Polish.
Yeah, it's it's still European-ish, I guess.
European-ish, with a tinge in there. And we talk about movies that come recommended. We have our cycle in which Bartek recommends a movie, I recommend a movie, and then you, the listening people, recommend a film. And it is my turn. I had the one left over from the end of last year. You had the Christmas movie, Bartek, and then after that I was like, oh well, it's up to me now, and we knew we were going to take a break, so I had to make sure to pick a film that had a little extra oomph to it for the new year. So we're going to be talking about the film from Thailand, our second Thai film that we've done on the podcast, Tears of the Black Tiger. But we are not doing this alone. We thought, hey, we're on holidays, we have more time to get guests on. You know, we can just do it on whatever day of the week we like. Spoiler alert, we still did it on the usual day, so we record these anyway, so whatever.
Normally we do Sunday, it's Saturday now.
Yeah, so usually we do it on the Lord's Day off, which is our day for podcasting, but
instead we're doing it on the Sabbath day.
Yeah, there you are. So we are joined by some good friends, Ben and Steve, from the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast. That's at least where I know them from. They're on many corners of the internet. Hello, Ben and Steve. How are you doing?
Hello, Ryan. Hello, Bartek.
Hey. Good to
Ben.
hear you.
Happy New Year. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, this is Ben. That's a good, not everyone.
Not even Bartek.
Familiar.
That's
a
Ben.
good point. Thank you, Steve.
Bartek said to me, he said, so we're joined by
Bartek.
Steve and Sean today? I'm like, no, Ben's coming. Sean's coming later. Your other friend and host, Sean, who...
Can I share
Sean?
your Ready Player One guy in the front of the theater saying something story made me think of an embarrassing where I'm the embarrassing one in the movie theater, which is so I saw, I think it was the Farrelly brothers did like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago.
The Three Stooges.
Yeah, Steve knows the story. And I very much enjoyed myself. There are certain times when I just enjoy something, just dumb as just not particularly smart. I like seeing people fall down and get hit by things. And I remember I was just laughing and laughing so hard, pretty much alone in an empty theater, like
yes.
Robert De Niro,
like Sideshow Bob, yeah,
in Cape Fear, and The worst thing about this story is that I'm not even sure if this happened to me or somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I do know I laugh, like, and I have a loud, obnoxious laugh. Somebody turned, either I got a look, which definitely happened, or if I'm stealing somebody else's story and I'm Robin Williamsing this, somebody turned and said, "This isn't that fun."
And you know what? I was that person.
Like,
I was like, Ben, it's not that funny.
Yeah,
What was
no,
that
I
Australian
know.
person
Not that
doing
funny.
in
It's
Chicago?
Larry David as a nun.
Yeah, Ben, mate, you do laugh a lot. So, guys, tell us a bit about your podcast, what you guys do, the general vibe of the thing. Give us a bit of a rundown for those who aren't tucked into the sci-fi TV show review podcast sphere. Could you give
Oh,
us
what are
a
you
bit of
doing?
an I know. I keep saying to Bartek, you just watched Babylon 5. Maybe you should go listen to Last Best Babylon 5 podcast and that other Babylon 5 podcast that refused to cover 2 episodes because they're cowards. You should listen
Oh wow,
to
you're
them.
casting shade now.
I don't care. They don't listen to this podcast. I don't give a fuck. I covered Believers. When I actually put in my podcast description that we cover every episode of a show, I actually do
But
it.
Ryan-
Unlike that one.
But Ryan, it's their podcast, so fuck you.
Yeah, that's it. So tell us a bit
I like
about your show, guys.
Yeah, we are
Go ahead,
watching
Steve.
all of Babylon 5, even Believers, if you could believe it. And we're just we go through it episode by episode, and we kind of just go through even scene by scene, and we just try to have fun with it and try to just look at it and give it an honest go. JMS is a very particular man. He's the guy who does the program, and we have some fun.
It's idiosyncratic.
Absolutely.
He wrote the first Thor movie, so that's something to think about.
Good for him.
And he shows up in it.
He wrote he wrote Changeling starring Angelina Jolie. There you go.
Yeah, I was going to say
He-
wrote
He wrote Believers.
No, he didn't actually. You're incorrect.
Oh, shit.
Wrong, Bartek. Wrong. That was the writer of The Trouble with Tribbles. The most funny, hilarious episode of the original series, went to go on and write one of the most fucked up, depressing episodes of Babylon 5's first season.
Well, I guess I
get the
shouldn't.
fuck out.
I guess I should not host a Babylon 5 podcast then.
No.
Look, anyone could do it. If Sean could do it, you could do it.
Ooh, and that's how we get into making fun of a guy who's not here to defend himself, and that's fine because if
Okay, well, I'm going to be Sean's advocate for this episode, so
Oh, no.
go ahead, say what you want.
Well, let's get into the discussion at hand. People listening out there, unlike those in the discussion, we watched Tears of the Black Tiger, and I say to you, watch it for yourself as well. If you have any interest in checking out films of a different walk of life, if you are wanting some interesting foreign films, or you're wanting to see a different take on westerns, or if you're wanting to see some kind of cult cinema, check it out for yourself, because we're going to go through the entire thing for you. But Bartek, just before everyone runs off and goes to watch it, could you give a kind of a pitch of what this is? If someone walked up to you in the street and said, Bartek, please, I want to watch Tears of the Black Tiger, but what's the deal with it? What's it about? What's there to watch? What would you say to them?
Genre-wise, I would say that it most resembles somewhat of a spaghetti western, where it is about an outlaw who's in love with a woman, and he's got a tragic past. He's sympathetic, but it leads to a lot of violence, and it has very heartfelt moments, and it also has very over-the-top violent moments.
And it's also got musical moments.
It's got songs.
It does have songs in it. So that is a great way to describe it. It is also, like you said, spaghetti western, but also reminds me of just some classic westerns where there's a romantic angle to it as well, where you have a gunslinger has to go get his girl before she's married off to this powerful man. And there's showdowns and all of that. So people, go check Tears of the Black Tiger. It's out there. You can watch it. And off we go. Now, I'm going to guess that nobody in this discussion has a history and or relationship with this particular film. Am I correct in that assumption, Bartek, at least with you?
Correct for me, yes.
Steve, Ben, have you guys heard or seen of this before?
I had not even heard of it. Never heard of it.
Yeah, I've never actually. I was trying to think when you mentioned this to me, Ryan. I don't think this was the first Thai film I've ever seen.
I'm going to recommend that you guys should check out Bad Genius from a few years ago. Steve, you specifically would very much like it. It's a kind of a caper film, a kind of intense, but it's set in high school. It's very good. Watch it.
This is the second Thai film I've seen. That one's the first I've seen.
And you said, Bartek, when we watched Bad Geniuses, you mentioned that whenever we finish this podcast, you'll look back and say Bad Genius was one of the best films that you got to watch on this. So check out, everyone, check out Bad Genius.
This. Yeah,
it's very really good.
Go in not knowing too much, but it's thrilling, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's a marvelous film. So I am the one who recommended this, and I do have a history with this movie. It ties heavily into one of our favorite films, Bartek, which is Czechoslovakian Western called Lemonade Joe. When we were in university, we had to create our own play. And I joked, we should create a Soviet Western. And like, what would a Soviet Western be? And then that led me to actually look up what Westerns looked like when they were made under the Soviet Union. And the first one that I found was Lemonade Joe, which is a Czechoslovakian satire and comedy film. And we love that movie very much. Everyone should check out Lemonade Joe. It's fantastic. It's hilarious. Truly wonderful, scathing commentary about the Soviet Union and the West. So it's also got one of my favorite things ever, which is it's tinted, and it's tinted lemonade yellow for great portions of the movie. It's truly delightful. So I wanted to find other films in the same kind of vein. We've watched a bunch of other films by that director of Lemonade Joe and other Czechoslovakian films. I've even followed up on some of the actors of that. And then I wanted to watch other Westerns from different countries. I have a personal fascination with Westerns in general. I like cowboy movies, and I like seeing films of a certain genre that we see dominated by one country in particular, or certain countries, and seeing how other cultures have a go at that. And so I stumbled across Tears of the Black Tiger, and this was the first Thai film I had seen. And I saw the images of it, and I said, ooh, I saw specifically the image of him playing his harmonica, leaning against the tree with that big thing, with the sun, moon, crescent thing in the background with in the field. And I was like, oh, I need to see this. And so eventually I tracked down a copy of it, and I watched it, I want to say a year or two ago. And I thought it was pretty good. I thought, yeah. But it was definitely one of those where it's like, I want to revisit this at some point for the podcast, chat about it with some people, see how we all fare with it. And it's no Lemonade Joe, but nothing ever will be. So that's something that we have to contend with. So, Bartek, you didn't know too much about this going in. So
I knew basically nothing.
So what was your overall journey with this, and how is it coming out?
I did not even know the genre, the premise, or anything like that. So, Ryan, this is a whole saga in itself. You tried giving me a copy, and this morning I discovered, hey, it's lost. Like, it was a digital copy on, like, a hard drive, and it's like, somehow it got lost. So I had to track down my own copy, and that obviously led me to see, like, still images from it. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's like a western-y kind of film. This will be interesting. And yeah, when it started, and it was very clear, like, oh, this is another country's take on a western type of film, I was like, oh, this is going to be very interesting. And yeah, it really was a very interesting film. We were talking before about how, like, oh, this film, the genre is like this, and it's also a bit like this, but also a bit like this. And you brought up the music that has songs and music all throughout it. And a lot of that music really kind of reminded me of some of the older Bollywood films I've watched.
When I was watching this, I thought this is going to be Bartek drooling, because has some of that Bollywood flair where, what was the name of the Bollywood thing? Masala films?
Yeah, Masala.
If you want to give a brief rundown of what Masala is, because I felt some of that here where it had some of that. a little bit of something for everyone
Yeah.
type of attitude.
That's basically, what masala kind of means. It just means like it draws from a little bit of everything into this one product.
Different tones, different
Yeah,
genres.
hence this one
different-
is a violent western with romance and comedy and action and just basically a little bit of everything. And yeah, I
history.
haven't. Yeah, and I haven't seen too many like older Bollywood films, but I've heard a lot of the music, and I've seen it like parodied in a few things, like even Om Shanti Om, and a lot of the like more romantic songs in this kind of sounded like it had that kind of like old filtering, like an older sort of microphone was recording a lot of that. And I always do remember that, like, oh yeah, apparently in a lot of the Asian countries, they are a bit more familiar with each other's like cinema. So I could definitely see, like, oh yeah, I bet a lot of Indian people might have also seen this and gotten something out of it, and maybe even this film might have been inspired by Bollywood films. That's all speculation, but I always have that thought whenever we watch like an Asian film.
Yeah, from what I can briefly gather, it does seem like with some of the modern Bollywood films that you've pitched over on this podcast, where they're calling back to the older days, but still doing it in a modern lens. I think that's what this film's doing, but with older Thai films, like Thai melodramas. And like you said, since, this is an Asian film, they kind of, everything kind of bleeds into one another, just like with Western films, in ways, but there's things that delineates them. I can definitely see what you're talking about there. Now, Steve, what did you think going into this? Did you have any thoughts bubbling in your brain when you heard Ryan wants you to come on for a podcast discussion, and here's the name of the movie, here's the file? Did you have anything in your brain, and what did you think coming out?
I had nothing. I didn't know anything about it. The only thing I had was like, I hope my computer can play this. But we got it. We got it figured out.
Him a little bit.
A little bit. Ben ran IT for me. Really, that's it. I knew it was a Thai movie, and that was it. I was excited to watch it. I've been trying to watch more movies lately, and this seems like kind of an out there one, based on what I usually watch. And I loved it. Watching it, I was thrilled the whole time. So I'm really glad that we got a chance and an excuse, because I honestly don't know when I would have ever even heard of this movie. It might have come up eventually at some point, but it came up like last week, and here it is, and now I've seen it and I love it. So I thank you for that.
No problem. Now, Ben, what about you?
So yeah, similarly, and just for a little context here, this movie, it had a DVD release here, but it is essentially it's not impossible. It's very difficult to find it to rent it streaming. The only platform in the US that has it streaming is you can rent it from Microsoft. So if you have a Mac like Steve does, you can't.
Well, that's your fault, Steve. That's your fault.
You can't
That's
rent
your
it.
fault.
Whoops.
You have to
Maybe
be
I'll do it
John
on my
Hodgman.
Microsoft phone. Oh, whoops! I have an iPhone. Oh no.
What a fool! What a fool!
Maybe I'll do it
picked
on
the
my
wrong
tablet.
American
Oh
com-
no, it's an iPad. Oh no.
So you had a bit of a journey getting into being able to watch this, which is fun because I feel like that's what we down here have with any film that we have to try and watch. Even our own local.
Dude,
films.
going back to Lemonade Joe and the other Czechoslovakian films we've done, like for both of those episodes, I don't know if coincidentally or purposely, we've had like other American podcasters on as guests, and like we had a hard time finding copies online, whereas they just went on Amazon Prime and it was there for them.
Yeah. So we're used to the tragic song of every movie, including our own Australian ones, are fucking difficult to find. So we just shrug and go, we'll do our best.
If it makes you feel better, the movie that Steve and I discussed to tell you about, I checked, and it's on archive.org.
Oh yeah. So whatever we will be watching next, Bartek, is on archive.org. So
it's not the best quality of it, but I mean,
But it's there.
a place of last resort.
It could be the Tom Booker dub of End of Evangelion. That's
It
what it
could
could be.
be.
We'll have to find out at the end of the episode. So Ben, what
Wait
did you
and
think of
see.
this though?
Oh, I similarly adored this. This is and similar to Steve, I can't imagine, like, especially because it's not something that is particularly available here. I can't imagine a scenario where I would have seen this. I really enjoyed it. It actually made me think a little bit about speaking about other like types of Asian films. A bunch of like Korean movies that I've watched, because this movie has a lot of like genre mashing. It's mashing up like this ultra violent, like Peck and Paw style Western with like high melodrama. And like, obviously not to say that like obviously Westerns had melodrama in them. But like there, you know, like if like Save the Green Planet, for example, a pretty good Korean film. Like, it is high comedy and it's drama, and it's like it mashes together all these different and disparate genres into one pretty like intense package. And this made me think of that. Like, this was a really, I would enjoy this, I think, as like a really good like midnight movie. Like, it has a real midnight movie quality.
You know, there was a foreign movie that this reminded me of as well, Ben. You ever heard of this guy Baz Luhrmann?
Sorry, can I?
No, I'm serious.
It's Ryan's favorite person.
Can we just pause for a second? I'm so sorry. This is the first time I've had an American actually talk in front of me, saying his name. It's Baz. Don't give me this fucking Baz. Don't give me like it's an O.
No, Steve, it's Luhrmann.
It's Baz.
Oh, Ryan,
Baz Luhrmann. Don't give me this fucking
I'll
bullshit.
send that.
You American.
You know what?
Jesus.
Ryan, you're acting like a Melbourner.
I know where Steve's going. I know where Steve's going. Go.
I am going to tell every American I know, starting with my girlfriend in the other room, Baz. It's Baz Luhrmann.
I don't know why you're saying. I don't know why you're stressing.
It's Taz.
There's his first movie, Strictly Ballroom. This reminded me very much of Strictly Ballroom.
Iconic film. Yeah.
Iconic. Great movie. And yeah, very similar. So, foreign movie to us, Benjamin. Baz Luhrmann.
The MCU is foreign to us.
Yeah, that is true, actually. It is foreign to us. No, so overall, I did, as someone revisiting it, I got a lot more out of it. The first time round, I liked it. I thought it was good. I gave it like a 3 out of 5. And I was just like, there was some areas of tone that I wished it lived in more, but on my rewatch of it, it went down so much smoother for me. I you know how that is, Bartek. You just have that familiarity with a thing, and you go, okay, now I can appreciate what the film is doing now that I have seen what it's done before. Because especially with weird movies like this, or movies that are off the beaten path of what you usually have, you are just so thrown off. You're trying to get your bearings on things a little bit, or you're just in awe. So you can lose some of those little details, some of those things that work, like structure and tone and pace and all that. So I actually got a lot more out of it on this watch, and I was so happy because I was like, will I ever watch this again? Maybe. But then I've got all these other films that I kind of like that do the thing that I wanted this film to do more. But then that's the thing. I wanted it to be something specific that it wasn't. I didn't accept the film wholeheartedly on what it was as a movie.
Yeah. And there's always that factor of like, oh, I could also share it with someone.
That is the case. And I just wanted to know from our guests, for Bartek and I, we like we said, we stumbled across like Czechoslovakian cinema because we were creating something, and then that led us to want to explore other things, and it gave us joys like Tears of the Black Tiger. And I was just wondering if, for you guys, if you've ever had that where you found something you liked and then that led you down a certain road of tracking other things down like it, and it helped find you some really great gems in cinema. Is there anything like that for you at all?
Yes, but I don't have a good answer for you, so I have to think about it. So Steve, you go first. I'm probably gonna look at my letterbox right now.
Yeah, he's gonna read about David Lynch and his ripoffs.
David Lynch, Eraserhead. Honestly, with movies, not so much. A lot of the movies that I watch are kind of the big ones. I guess I might say television that happens a lot. Like I really get into Sherlock Holmes through Columbo, and then from Columbo to Sherlock to Jeremy Brett. So like kind of that sort of things. But for movies, not so much. I do love a good caper though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's fair. TV can do that for me as well. Like when I watch something like Better Call Saul, I'm like, are there other good shows like this? And the answer is not right now. Not right now. Go to the past, buddy. Not right now.
Yeah, but no, I mean, Ben and I have always. Oh, sorry. Ben and I have always tried to watch kind of great movies together. Starting in like high school, we'd be like, oh, what's this movie about? Oh, it's like a Pet Cemetery documentary. Oh, wow, that was amazing. Like Errol Morris stuff, and then I'd be like, hey Ben, check out this guy Douglas Sirk. You into you into melodrama? Well, check this guy out.
I am now.
Yeah.
I am now.
So we'd always try. I wouldn't say any particular rabbit hole, but we did try to like cover a wide area.
Yeah, I'm very much like a rabbit hole type of viewer. You and I both are like that very much, Bartek. We find certain things and then that leads us like, okay, what are other things like this? Or, okay, so this filmmaker did this film. What are other films by him? Who are their contemporaries? Or who are their stable of actors? And I want to see more actors from these and other movies. And we are very systematic like that, you and I. We do that a fair amount. Like if you ever look through our catalog on this podcast, you'll see like, oh, they really like these recurring figures. Paul Giamatti is our child. We love him, but we save him, and we always go for his weirder movies or weirder picks or dumber picks.
On our old podcast, we really like to return to the genre of erotic thriller, and I've been missing it a lot.
Specifically African American erotic thrillers, which is a whole subgenre of its own.
True, but it started with a J-Lo film.
By what's that studio? I can't remember.
Screen Gems?
Screen Gems. We love Screen
Gem
movies. They're great. If you want to see Idris Elba struggling to get some work.
We did start with The Boy Next Door, though, which isn't one of them.
The Boy Next Door is one of the greatest films ever made. It did ask the question.
With the Odyssey, is that the one?
Yes.
I was literally about to reference how they are too esoteric, but you know it.
But let's get back to our dear friend Tears of the Black Tiger. Now, Bartek, what were some of the things that leapt out at you, or when you were first going through this, what was just your overall feelings about it?
I really appreciated how, even though this is a very over-the-top, ridiculous film, not all the time, but for a lot of it, and this would be one of the things that you'd recommend about it to someone, how whenever it wouldn't do those things, it would be very sincere. Like the romance story, especially all the backstory stuff when the girl was much younger, it felt like I was watching like a legitimate like romance drama.
Yeah.
It was really like sincere, and I really appreciated that.
Any specific moments of that you liked? Any like scene or sequence? When it comes to like the sincere moments.
A lot of the stuff when they were rowing, like when you had the pond with all those flowers and the lily pads in the water, and there was this very overt like classist thing going on here. It's like, oh, this is the wealthy one. This is his name is Dumb, but I was gonna say like dumbish kind of peasant, as he calls himself. Going along with what she says, and it's like, oh, there's this element of like she's a brat, but you can tell that like, okay, she's underneath the surface, something a bit more sweet there, and then as she grows up, the sweetness is really all that there is she has left for him.
The thing that I really do appreciate about a film like this or piece of media like this that is obviously kind of homaging and satirizing and calling back to these things, but doing it in a heightened way, in a comedic fashion, is when they can demonstrate that they can do it legitimately. It shows that they have a very deep understanding of the material that they're playing around with. Like, it's easy to just be like, oh, I can make a silly Western, but it's actually greater if you can do a silly Western with genuine moments of thrills and kills and tension. Like, one of my favorite scenes is when we have the head of the gang, what was his name? Faye, and he had the coin, and it had the hole in the middle of it. And the way that was
awesome.
Shot, and legitimately that's played as like, it's not played as like silly, but it's like, this is unique, this is different, and yet it still has those things that make you dig your claws in when you watch an actual spaghetti western or genuine western, where you have the moment right before the gunshot is out there. And I always appreciate these type of films where they do show us that on a filmmaking level they truly understand the genre that they're playing with, rather than just going for the easiness of being wacky and over the top and silly. And that has its place too, but these are the ones that I remember far more. Like I will remember the sincere sequences as well. Like for me, the visual image that has stayed with me is when he when they're in the flashback and he gets hit in the face with the oar and he gets a scar, and we get the origin of his scar. And then he is dunked into the water and he's like diving in underneath the water to try and grab her. And then time passes and now all the water is like red with his blood. And he's still going in and out and in and out. And that's the scene, that's the image I remember.
There are so many things in this film that like feel like a painting.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one of the first shots is of that like gazebo thing.
Including the painting, the massive background
so
painting.
I actually had that. I had that thought of like, oh, some of this looks like painting. So when we actually did get a painting, I'm like, oh, it's more literal now.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the first shots, like of the lovers gazebo thing, whatever it was called. I actually did think that was like a painting, but I'm like, oh, but it's animated. What's going on here? And then the scene continued, and people were interacting with it. I'm like, oh wow.
It's one of those where once you see a person in it, you sit up because you see that image, you go, oh, that's a beautiful like matte painting or image of the composer shot. But then when you see like her and her dress and her lipstick, and you're like, oh wow, they've really went to the effort, and they're going for a very specific aesthetic here. And I'm in for the ride already. Now, Ben, what about you? What were some of the things that, you know, you're tuning into this, you really don't have any clue what you're getting into? What were some of the things that just grabbed you very early on in the viewing of it? The things that just got your attention fully?
So yeah, like this was interesting because like kind of going in, not knowing anything, as you said, and again, not having any real context on like Thai films. I really had no idea what to expect. I knew that there were like parodic elements to the movie, and I was watching it, and I didn't quite know what to make of the movie until the big, like the first really major shootout, where they go to Phai's like a secret place, and there's this massive shootout, and it seems like they probably shoot the same cowboys about like 10 times, and then there was, and I was messaging Steve as I was watching the movie, and I messaged him. I was like, all right, it just got the first like huge laugh out of me. Like, okay, it got me. And that was when our heroes show up, which is the Black Tiger and his new best friend show up with bazookas and just start like destroying everything, and that was when like the remarkably turned up all the way aspects of the production, like it all kind of fell into place, and I was like, oh, I see. I like, you know, I understood everything at that moment, and then from that moment on, every aspect of the movie I got. Like I was enjoying, like I enjoyed it. Opens with like that fun shootout with a like, let's see it again and stuff like that, but I wasn't all the way there on it because I was a little worried, as you just said, Ryan. I was like, oh, is this just gonna be a little too wacky? Like, is this what the movie is? Like, is it gonna be like this? And then like seeing that, and then kind of set alongside like this very absurd like the captain like really playing, I mean everybody's playing it like massively high, and he's like, "Oh, I love you so much, dear," and completely missing that she's looking the other way and actively despises him.
Looked at into his eyes ever.
Like once I was like, oh, once all of that like kind of clicked for me, which was, and that's about like 35 minutes into the film, then I was like, okay, all right, I understand what this movie is essentially, and now I have a grip on it, and I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, no, especially with these type of movies, you have to, unless you're like immediately in. There's that kind of wading. You're wading into the waters of it, where you go, okay, I'm getting a feel, and then there's that thing that unlocks it for you. I remember on my first particular viewing, the thing that unlocked it for me was when we first really got to see our black tiger facing off against his best friend in that area, and like when his best friend is like reaching for his gun, and then he's obviously on like a little police system, and they pull him to the side.
My God.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I was like,
incredible. Yeah.
I clapped, and
That was
I
like
remember being like, "This is the best movie I've ever seen ever."
That was like a mindfuck where it's like, oh yeah, the camera's like going behind him. Like, no, wait, he's the only thing moving in the frame.
He's the one that's moving, and of course, for me, I loved that particular actor's performance. He was my favorite, and immediately
I was waiting to bring up that
I'm with
fact.
you. Yeah, my favorite
he was the best,
in the movie as well. He's
His voice was
constantly-
literally just like that, I'm a hero, but like just played very naturally.
He almost felt like a high school student who's begrudgingly in the school play.
He's doing
And he's like,
takes to the camera.
Yeah.
Like, Ryan, continue saying what you were saying now.
And they're like, school kid is like, Ryan, you have to do the evil laugh. And he's like, I love that performance because it's almost like he's super passionate, but it's almost like he's doing it begrudgingly, and a beautiful combination. Now, Steve, tell us a bit about you. Like, what were some of the things that helped garner your attention and grip you in it?
I was almost immediately hooked in with just how gross it was in that first scene. The way that he spit, and the spit was like bright red spit.
Yeah.
And how all the kills had just like disgusting explosions of blood in it. So I was really on board right away. I loved how artificial it all looked. It was almost like Wes Anderson in some way, where all the homes looked like toys. Especially the governor's mansion. It was just so beautiful and so fake. That really brought me in. I think a couple things that really, like, I was shocked by some of the things that happened. There was this one moment where they flash back to 10 years ago, and then they end up putting like this old-timey filter on the grain, and they start to play like film reels, like sound effects. And it's just like, what the fuck was that? Like, you didn't need to do that.
That's what reminded me of the old Bollywood thing, yeah.
And it's just like,
it's
what?
the past. It's the past.
Yeah, it's the past. So, and they did this like weird silent movie things where they'd have these like, it was like Little Rascals, like,
Yeah.
like, someone's face would pop up, just kind of like making a little smirk, and it's like, what the fuck is this?
That was a good laugh for me, where he's like,
Yeah.
the young version of him is thinking about the love of his life, and it's a flash pop-up image of her sticking her tongue out like a little brat at him, and he's
Yeah.
like, That's like the only thing he has of her.
You have a lot of iris outs as well.
Oh, yeah. A lot of
Yeah,
those,
and they had a spitting newspaper gag, like, which I love.
Oh yeah.
And
Steve
you never know.
has loved those forever. I can verify this.
That's a
Something
That's
fun.
definitely
Very
a Simpsons thing for me. But like, you never quite know where this is set. Like, is it in the Old West? Is it not?
What time is
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
It was back when universities were pink.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, like all the different colors and the weird filters they'd put on it. Everything had like some scenes had weird little glows to them.
one of the driving scenes.
Oh my god, the rear projection was in black and white. It was black and white.
Yeah, and it made them stand out. Like, it made them look like extra. It made the romantic scene or whatever it was pop.
There was almost like they shot the traitor. This is the scene with the coin. And something I really loved, and they did this a couple times in the movie, where like right before the bullet hit the guy, you just get like a 1/2 second shot of like a brain. It's just a brain.
Yes.
And then and they did that a couple times where it'd be like someone's skull, and like you'd see it for like they do it in like Home Alone, and like John Hughes used to do it.
I was
all
gonna
the
say
time.
in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you have that a lot, where it's like, oh, John Candy's devil, and now there's a skeleton, and it's like a split second. You're like, why is that
it's
here?
Just so
it's
fun.
funny.
Yeah, and it's just so fun to watch. Like these little moments, and this movie is just so the fact that they started that shot where is the coin and you don't know exactly what it is, and then it's like, oh, it's just a coin, like beautiful. I was
gonna say,
like,
I appreciate those. Yeah. I appreciate those types of setups to like a scene or sequence where you have like this image of like this guy and he's in something, like he's like, is he underneath an archway? What's his perspective? But in a way, your brain goes, oh, I accept this. But then when they pull out and they reveal that you're looking through a coin, you're like, oh, that's clever. Okay, yeah, I want to see more of. Now I want to see them do this shot again and again, and then they do, and they do it in different ways. It's really fun. I love those type of sequences in movies or shows where you're not too sure initially of what we're looking at, but your brain just goes, oh, I accept it. And then they show you what it is, and it's something clever or unique or different. And you go, okay, now I want to see this shot again. And they do that. Like, I think of, we just mentioned Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul did that all the time. There's like one episode of Better Call Saul where it's like, why are we watching these ants? There's like a million ants. What are we watching? And it's like 4 minutes of like opera music playing. And then it zooms out and they're eating an ice cream. You're like, what? And then it's like, oh yeah, that's right, he dropped his ice cream last episode. Oh, and then like that kind of stuff is something that really tickles my fancy. One of the sequences that I guess not a sequence, but something that really draws me in is the physicality of our lead. The way he postures, the way he holds himself, and when he's like reaching for his gun, and he just has such a pronounced manner that is very arched and specific, but it's one of those where it's like, I understand the shorthand of what they're doing with this character, and just, even though I don't understand the language, I can tell like him specifically, he's giving a very genuine performance for a piece of material that's clearly over the top. Like, I would say out of all of our actors, like him, our lead, and our female lead, they're playing it straight. Like, I don't really get a sense like they're ever really winking to the camera like everybody else is. They come across like they're playing it like they're in a real romantic drama, and he's like the brooding cowboy who has to kill people.
Yeah, to go back to
in a different movie, which is
great, which is good
for sure.
To go back to the whole idea of like, borrowing from other cultures, it gave me real like samurai vibes. It's like this kind of loner who's like the real tough guy. Well, tough guy not in the like cowboyish sense, which he also has going on, but he's talented with his choice of weapon. He's got this brooding story. He's got like the title. He's the Black Tiger.
Isn't that kind of part of like kind of what like Western like film mythos anyway? Like, like a lot of like Yojimbo or like Sanjuro, like those are essentially Westerns just
with an Eastern flavor,
done as samurai, and then they were literally remade as Westerns.
No, there's a definite strong relationship, and so it is always unique when we see, say, an Asian country just directly do a Western, because like you said, Bartek, like, you have that samurai type of feel, and like Ben said, but then it's also fun just to see like, he is a cowboy guy and he's got a painted on little mustache.
Oh my god, that mustache.
That was one of the first laughs in the movie. I'm like, that fucking mustache, like, he looks like a kid. Like playing dress up.
Groucho.
Yeah.
That's eyeliner just on his lip.
Yeah, like there's some shots where it looks like a little slice of construction paper. Like, like that's about the level it looks like.
And it's awesome. So
speaking of,
sorry, Bartek, you go.
I was gonna say, speaking of not looking the right age, like in the flashbacks, our main character looked much older than the girl and the guy who gave him the scar.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad that was said. I was like, wait a minute, is this guy is that an 18-year-old and like 12-year-old.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I thought about that too a lot.
Is this like, he's going to be like her servant or something? He's like, oh, the young mistress, but no, it's a romance thing.
So did you have many laughs during this, Bartek? Any chuckles or giggles?
I mean, giggles throughout, yeah. I don't think I had any really big major ones, but, I had giggles. I was appreciating the film for it. It was a really good time.
Did you have a particular go-to? Like when you walk away from this, you go, well, Ryan, Tears of the Black Tiger, it had that scene in it, or that moment.
It's probably going to be more like, well, Ryan, I'm going to do my impression of the Blood Brother now.
I loved
that scene
when
was so cool.
That was amazing when they became they cut down. They didn't go across from the wrist. They cut down. Like
I thought, like, wait, is this like a cult thing going on here?
Yeah,
it's a lot of.
Were they
blood.
part of a cult the whole time? I thought they were outlaws.
That was a lot of blood.
that was, I mean, good, but I did like later when he was when his blood brother was called out for betraying him. He's like, well, you betrayed us to begin with, so I actually think I'm in the right here.
Yeah,
you can't call me out of this technicality. Like he tried to
but he did the oath in front of the Buddha.
Yeah, but he's like, yeah, but you betrayed me, so I can now betray you. You broke this. How dare you? Like, I loved that character. He's going to be the thing I remember the most. He was just his death was awesome and violent. Everything about him was truly amazing. Like,
his costume was great.
Oh, his costume.
He had the best costume.
He had the best costume. Well, yeah, I like the leader of the gang. He just was like, you looked at him and go, I immediately know what you are. Even before he has to talk, I'm like, I know what you are.
The governor's mustache was incredible. There were some pretty great dresses.
Stalinist,
The very the low energy singer at the wedding.
Oh my god!
Spectacular.
With those glasses, yeah.
Skinny guy passionlessly singing a song at a wedding, like
in like a balcony, looking down. Yeah,
it was like something out of a David Lynch movie. Like it was, like that was wonderful. I loved that guy.
My gut bust laugh was when the cowboys started breaking in to the governor's house.
Oh, with
and
the
guy
boots
goes,
come down,
the boot comes down, and the guy looks at it like, oh, hello. Like it's just such a strange image, and yet it's played. It was just marvelously constructed, and just all of that really delighted me a whole bunch. Like that really got a good laugh out of me. I also loved every time they kept reinstating like who they are to one another. Like, I do love you. You are my partner. Like, just they would emphasize who they were, and it's just like very, very much like this is what these movies do. This is what these stories do. It's like we need to let you know that we love each other.
It's like
and
a
I'm
soap
going to stand
opera.
by you. Yeah.
That makes me think, Ryan. You said earlier, like you were talking about how like the two leads and the romantic is they're playing it very straight when everyone else is playing it very arch, and they probably have some of the most ludicrous dialogue in the film, and so that's an intentional choice that makes it all the better. Like they have, as you just said, like they're just constantly restating the same thing to each other, like just again and again and again, and they're saying it with a completely straight face. Exactly.
And they're saying it like they've never said it before.
Yeah, and that's what really, like, if they were playing it as like as high as like the best friend or Faye or like even the captain, like it wouldn't work because it would be too silly. Like them playing it straight and everybody else being nuts is I think a large part of what makes it work.
Yeah, and we talk about the visuals and stuff and how like heightened they are, but like with when we covered Lemonade Joe or with David Lynch movies or any kind of filmmaker you can think of that has like Wes Anderson, they have these very almost like confectionery, bright or like really striking.
Baz Luhrmann.
Baz Luhrmann.
Baz.
Well, I didn't bring him up for a reason because I don't like him. But in amongst all of that, you get legitimately memorable and compelling images. Like Blue Velvet is like a whole film of that, where he's like, you get legitimately unsettling and compelling images. While here, it's like when Black Tiger, when they come in and they're like, have you killed the guy? Have you killed the captain? And he slowly turns around and he has like a knife in his heart. That's like an image that stayed with me. I'm like, that's such a good one. Or even the final like image of like him pulling out the picture that he had in his in his pocket, and there's a hole and the bullet hole in it and the blood stained on it. And like that's a genuinely great like visual. There's no like, it's not funny, but it's like, that's good. That's good. Like, there's the balancing act, like we say, of the actors where they're playing it straight, and that makes it kind of even funnier. But there's also the balancing act of like the direction here of the actual images we're seeing on the screen of, yeah, we have all the funny stuff, but also like the stuff that is played genuine. And that stuff is actually the things I remember more. Like, yeah, I remember him playing the harmonica on the tree with that beautiful set, but honestly, I remember the scene of him as a little boy trying to get her out of the water, and now the water's stained with his blood. Like that's one of those where it's like, I don't see that enough. Like, and so in amongst all the insanity and absurdity, you do get moments of like unbridled genius when it comes to this, like you do with many of these. But that's just me rambling about that. Like, Bartek, do you have anything like that at all? Like, was there anything of like on a visual level where like that was visceral, or something that wasn't just like you remember, like you liked it because it was like wacky or over the top or silly for you?
Well, I mean, I talked about the opening shot.
No, yeah. Any other like things that leap out at you at all?
Not necessarily that it happened while I was watching it, but you just mentioned before, like, he was playing the harmonica in the tree, and that reminded me that there's a scene where he's got the gun in the tree. Like, he's shooting down at people from the tree, so it's like this really interesting juxtaposition that I didn't notice when I was watching.
Oh, another one is too at the ending when his blood brother has the hole in his hat, and we're following like the deduction of why he shot the hole in the hat in the first place, and like that's great. Like that's that was like I fist pumped like, oh, that's fucking brilliant.
It's like, is there a payoff for this? Like, oh, there was.
I mean, there's a setup too. The movie's fucking raining all the time. There's so much rain in this movie, and it's a movie rain where it's like fucking thick. And
well,
like,
that first scene has a hole. Like the shooter from above, and he sees the hole, and then he shoots the floor down around the shooter. So like there's that I guess there's a motif of holes. The whole teeth. The whole teeth.
Now, for you guys, were there any particular standout moments for you when it comes to those like genuine moments of filmmaking?
I mean, for me, like I was thinking while you were talking about like how inventive this film is that like it takes a bunch. There's a lot in this film, especially because it very explicitly is either doing parody or homage. Like where you see the same thing that you've seen in other films. Like obviously I don't have a big background in Thai melodrama, but I do, like, I have seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And so when they do that high noon, like not high noon, it was night when they have the shootout at the end, but when they have that shootout at the end, has the back of the legs shot where you see his hand, like their hands at the guns, and like they're shaking, and you're like, okay, like I'm familiar with what this is, right? Like I've seen this in a ton of movies, and then that they manage the movie kept going to familiar constructions, and then doing something clever I hadn't seen with them before. So like there was the hole in the hat. But I mean, I was thinking about how they pay off that final shootout, which is that the one where the brain explodes?
Yeah, pretty sure.
I think that's the brain one.
That's the one. The final shootout.
Is that the brain one? Which one is that?
No, that's the one when his teeth explode.
His teeth explode.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. Not in a million years. Like,
and it's awesome. And it's
I've
awesome.
seen a lot of westerns. I love westerns. I've seen a lot of shootouts at the end of the movie. I've seen a lot of that. I've never seen a man's teeth explode.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's true throughout the film. Like there's a lot of examples of that, but that one sticks out in particular because it's such a shop worn trope that everyone's seen, and it's like, aha, gotcha.
Yeah. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to kind of separate the beautiful shots and the beautiful moments with the absolutely silly shots. To me, it's all the same thing. It's like this movie just goes all the way everything. But something that really like made me laugh and kind of clap with delight was he had just been whipped by his father for allowing the governor's daughter to get into such grave injury. And he is passed out on the floor, and his pipe or his whistle has been destroyed. And the female lead, she comes in and swaps it out for a harmonica as he is kind of passed out. And then the music changes from it's a whistle playing it.
Yeah.
The second she puts the harmonica down, it picks up and it's harmonica music. So just like I feel like this movie just finds these little ways to delight you constantly. Like Ben said, the way that this guy's teeth explodes, or Bartek, I think you mentioned like how the guy is just on like a conveyor belt in that shootout and he's moving but the camera's not. Like it's full of these just like delightful, I don't even want to say tricks. It's just nothing is done the way you expect it to be, and there's so many things in this movie that I'm just gonna keep thinking about. Beautiful too. The colors are so beautiful. The costumes. At some point, I thought I was watching a cartoon. The way that the colors are so vibrant and the movement is so well thought out. So
it's one of those where you wish real life looked like that sometimes. Where you're like, I wish everything was so vibrant like this. And
Sorry.
Or
Pink
movies
universities.
made today.
or movies made
That's
today.
my obnoxious
the MCU
nerd complaint. Like or anything. Like it's just
No,
like,
yeah, for sure.
let's desaturate the color out of everything. Like it's nice to see a movie that actually knows that there are colors in the crayon box that aren't dark blue and maybe a little yellow.
Don't forget brown.
Like,
So
brown. It looks like Quake.
Gray.
yeah,
You took it out of my mouth. Grey. Don't forget grey.
great. Well, that's why we love The Love Witch, where that movie was nothing but like its beautiful colors.
Did you see Anna Biller's first movie?
No,
so she did.
I've
The
never
Love
seen
Witch.
any other movie from her.
If you enjoyed the Love Witch is a better film, but I enjoyed. I think it's Viva is the name of her first movie. And I watched that with a good friend of mine, and we were screaming at
Not
points.
me. It wasn't me, by the way.
Steve's not a good friend,
He's a
bad friend.
I would say
Not invited.
Steve because you're here.
but he's a bad friend. He's a bad friend. There was a sequence in Tears of the Black Tiger that I also rather enjoyed, where you had they're breaking into the governor's house and the wedding, and all of that hijinks is happening, and you have like the nice little moment where you have head of the evil gang, and he's like, I'm in charge, I've got everything up my sleeve, and he's playing it super calm, and then he just gets stabbed from behind with a bayonet, and then you turn around and it's like, hey, this guy is
The governor. He had a criminal past, he implies.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I grew up on the streets or whatever. Like,
But my favorite part was he did finish there. He did shoot, like he did continue to make sure to kill this fucker. Like he stabbed him, and then the guy, then he takes it out. And then you have the classic like turn around and be like, you stabbed me. How could you do that? But no, he didn't stop there. It's like no, I'm gonna make sure to put this guy down, which I appreciated so much, even though it meant that one of my favorite characters now left the film rather suddenly, but hey, that's fine.
It was a good exit, yeah.
It was a great exit. It's one of those that you remember from the dawn of time. I do love that those the kid bullies. I loved
and they came back as adults.
and they looked like absolute losers.
And they were like, I remember when I did that to you 10 years ago. Like,
you know exactly what's going to happen, too. You're just like,
Yeah.
all right, I can't wait to see these guys get their ass kicked again.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like they're such losers, but they're still playing it like they're genuine, like, you know, like they're real threats. But you look at them aesthetically, and like, these guys are going to get their asses kicked so hard. And they do get their asses kicked so hard. Anything else in particular you want to reference, Bartek, or flag up when it comes to it? Because there's quite a lot here.
I mean, they took the trump card of bringing up that the kids come back as adults, and they kind of still have similar things. Like the shortest one is still the shortest one.
That's how we got to remember who they are.
Yeah, and also pointing out that I'm the one that gave you the scar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is one of those movies where they make sure this is how this came to be. Like, here's his scar, the origin of the scar or the harmonica.
It's the samurai, the outlaws, origin story of how he got the scar.
How he got all of that. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Ryan, you wanted to bring up something about the title?
Oh yes, the title. Now, Bartek, you were looking at on IMDb, and one of the trivia titles was this film cannot be translated, and then the next one was like, the film's translation title is this. Yeah. So which is it, guys?
Yep. So on Wikipedia it says here that the Thai title is Fa Talai Chon, literally the heavens strike the thief.
Okay. And then at some point it's now Tears of the Black Tiger. And I did a bit of background reading, just some Wikipedia, some IMDb, and a few other places. And on Roger Ebert's website, there's a review for this. Not by Roger Ebert, of course, although this was reviewed when he was still with us and still reviewing, so...
Yeah,
I don't know.
He was around in 2000.
Yeah, and so they have it titled as, I think, like A Fistful of Colors or something. And I'm like, why is it titled this?
That
could be like
maybe
the
that could be
the
yeah. I was going to say the article title.
That's
like
what I had to
kind of witty.
That's what I had to gather.
Like
and then
witticism.
I read the review, and it's one of those let's just say embarrassing reviews where they kind of ended being like, this could have been a great, like, because YouTube was new. Factor that in. Like, this could have been actually not a feature film, but a great, like, YouTube short. In fact, I kind of feel guilty when watching the movie that it's feature length and not like a short YouTube film.
Oh.
And I'm like,
oh no.
Embarrassing, you said?
Wrong.
Yeah.
Good word.
I was embarrassed. I'm thoroughly embarrassed. Like, fuck off. Like, this is a film that puts so much effort into it. Like, that's another appeal of the movie is you look at it and you go, they gave their heart and soul. Everybody gave their heart and soul into this. This isn't half-assed. Like, that's another thing that makes it stand out as like a great, like, comedy film. Sometimes, sadly, when it comes to like these spoofs of things or these homages and whatever, when it comes to like being films, they rather like lackluster and kind of lame, and they don't put enough like of that big effort in.
Okay,
sometimes you can just get these like spoof movies like, well, they're wearing cowboy outfits, isn't that good enough? But it's like, no, push more. And this is a film that pushes all the way that you can and still maintains being comprehensible. And I
want to just point out that was a Jim Emerson review. That was
I don't know.
Roger.
I don't know. I don't know.
I just want. Well, he was I mean, I don't think he writes for them anymore, but it's just a writer on his website.
Yeah.
I think
I just wanted to defend the good name of Chicago's Roger Ebert.
No, Roger Ebert didn't like Nothing But Trouble. He's our enemy. So, and he didn't like Baby's Day Out. He's our enemy again.
I think that reviewer has something. I think on the same sort of wavelength, maybe Pablo Picasso's paintings should have just been DeviantArt uploads.
Another thing about the behind the scenes was mentioned early on that it's actually quite hard to find copies of this in America.
Mm-hmm.
There was a DVD release of this at some point. There was also cut down.
Yeah, a lot of studio
10 minutes.
meddling to cater to American audiences.
And of course, whose names?
I saw that.
Whose names
Harvey.
come to it's the Weinsteins in general, and they are very much. It was very much classic. You hear this all the time well, we have to cut it down for business and also because Americans will digest it better if we just hack it to bits. And then even then when we do, and also we have to change the ending to happy because
of 9/11.
And that's where
said that.
And guess what? That's where Roger Ebert comes back in, baby.
Zoolander.
Because I think of Zoolander and his review of Zoolander where he was like, how dare Ben Stiller release a comedy after 9/11 in such poor... It's like Ben Stiller didn't fucking make it happen. Like, he made a movie.
No, Roger was right. I stand with Roger.
Did he give Dana Carvey shit for Master of Disguise?
I don't think he watched it. No one watched Master of Disguise. But, like, that was shot during 9/11. Didn't come out like a week or two later.
Oh, that's
like
fair enough, yeah.
Zoolander.
Fucking Zoolander.
Fucking Zoolander. How dare it be funny?
I want to give you a little
Zoolander.
context, and Steve,
Context
please
is for
back
kings.
me up
Go
that
on.
you remember this, which is, so I remember, like, in the following months after 9/11, there was, oh, fuck, what was the name of it? It was this Jim Carrey, like, being serious movie.
The
came out.
Majestic?
It was The Majestic.
The Majestic.
And
yes.
I remember the television commercials for it weren't like clips of the movie, or at least entirely, and then like The Majestic now in theaters. What it was a camera interview with Jim Carrey and other people that worked on the film. And please, Steve, tell me that you remember this.
I do not remember any of
where they're like, The Majestic, it's a movie about like people coming together, and I really think that's what we need right now.
Oh, I guess I kind of do now that you mention it.
And
But
I
it's such a
remember that
faint
movie,
memory.
or
Yeah.
that commercial all the time. And so, I mean, that's where we were. That was, September of 2001, October of 2001. It's like we need a movie right like this right now.
The sad thing is, I can't remember my wife's phone number, but I do have a catalogue of projects that were killed because of the American psyche post 9/11. So that's like where I'm at. Like, do I know that Reefer Madness, the musical, flopped on Broadway because it dared to come out a few days after 9/11? Yes. Do I remember the pilot episode to The Lone Gunman? Yes, I do. Which, if you've never watched the pilot episode of The Lone Gunman, came out, I think, in May of 2001, and the plot is the lone gunmen stumble across a conspiracy that the American government is going to do an inside job where they hijack a domestic airliner plane and fly it into the Twin Towers, and it's up to them to stop it. That's the plot. And you know who wrote that episode? Vince Gilligan. Vince? What did you know? What the fuck did you know? Because you brought that shit back in Breaking Bad too.
Yeah, Vince.
You brought your plane crashing in Breaking Bad. What the fuck
tragedy.
did you know, Vince? Can you tell us? If we watch all of his work, we could find secret messages of him telling us how he knows what really went down. Like, what the hell is going on?
We've all been brainwashed by things older than 2001 that dare to show the Twin Towers in it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But when it comes to the film that we're actually talking about, Tears of the Black Tiger, is there anything else either of you guys want to flag up or bring up or discuss when it comes to this? Anything else that you want to go over?
The thing that I thought of a lot, and I make this comparison every time I can, but it did remind me of wrestling. It was very much a professional wrestling kind of feel where everything is escalated. There's very simple stories that kind of get woven in, and a ton of violence. This scratched that itch for me. So if you like this, watch Monday Night Raw, perhaps.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
Thank you, Alex.
This movie really reminded me of
wrestling rules, though. Australia is a great place for wrestling. Come on.
I'm all right, thank you. Keep going, Ben.
For some years, I went to this place called, which is still around, Facets here in Chicago, which is like this art house theater that is like super like art housey. Like it's a tiny little theater. It probably seats about maybe 45 or 50. And they play like really like super budget indies or a lot of like international cinema from like beyond like where we typically import films. Saw a lot of movies from like Brazil and just all over. and they had a midnight movies program one summer where they would play movies like this, but they would precede them, because it was fancy art house, with like a lecture from somebody that was very familiar with the film, that put this really like cheesy or absurd or strange film within the context that it was being made in. Like, so we watched like Lady Terminator from the Philippines, and this guy gave this long, very interesting lecture about like this grand tradition of these Filipino like takes on American movies as these very broad and like ridiculous films. And if you haven't seen Lady Terminator, it's incredible and hilarious. And this is a movie I kind of wish that like I got to see this movie in that program, because I would love to have
for sure.
that same dude talk like for 25 minutes about like this grand tradition of time melodrama and like the background of the director and the actors, because like I really like it just made me think about how much I appreciated that at the time and how much I'd love that for this film.
Well, Ben, it's time for you to stop talking about that guy and start being that guy yourself. You should be that guy. You are now somebody who's experienced this. You could do the legwork. You can be the person giving a lecture about Tears of the Black Tiger. What's stopping you?
Sadly, they shut it down because only freaks like me were into it.
Start it up.
Who wants to sit at a lecture at midnight and then watch a 2-hour movie and then have a discussion after? You left at like 3:30.
Me. The only time I've ever had that was when my wife and I were going on a date early on in our relationship, and they were screening Blues Brothers, and they had a little thing like that, and then they had a quiz about Blues Brothers, and the reward, Bartek, you know this story, the reward for this was, we'll send you the soundtrack, we'll mail you the soundtrack. This was like 2012. It was like, we'll post that to you. I'm like, yay! And I won, because of course I did. I know Blues Brothers quite well. I love Dan Aykroyd.
Ryan's seen the film.
I have seen it. John Candy. But then months go by, months and months and months, and they never posted it to me. I'm like, what the fuck's happening? And I completely forgot about this. This was like my first year away from home. It's university, just started dating. So eventually I forgot about my Blues Brothers soundtrack. And then eventually, like, I think it was like 10 months later, I got something in the mail, and it was from the cinema. I'm like, oh my God. I opened it up, and there was a letter first that I read, which was, unfortunately, we're out of copies of the Blues Brothers soundtrack. So here, have Michael Jackson's This Is It.
Okay.
And I don't like Michael Jackson.
Fair trade.
Sure.
And then I proceeded
unrelated thing.
Then I proceeded, well, it was because it was a movie thing at the time, I guess. I don't know. But it was like, okay, great. Now I have a Michael Jackson CD. I don't like Michael Jackson. And then I proceeded to, every time I had to trim my toenails, I put my toenails in that CD case, because I was like, oh, this is something that amuses me. But then when I moved out of that flat, I took everything except that. I kept that in a drawer on the table for the next person to have a little discovery.
Surprise.
See, that's what we call gift giving. So that's my little experience with that. Is there anything else anyone wants to bring up about Tears of the Black Tiger? Any sequences or observations or just anything else?
It ruled. It was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, I had a...
Yeah, we're in your debt for this.
Okay, well, we'll have to hear how you
Don't
pay
tell
that
him that.
debt.
He's going to call for it.
He's not going to pay.
Don't worry, Ben. We're going to repay both of these fellas with our pick. Our pick's great. You know that, Ben, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. You say that like ominously. It's a good movie.
We'll see in a bit. Yeah. But Bartek, final thoughts? Recommend this to people? Would you?
No tigers, though.
Was that a disappointment for you?
No tigers.
I was kind of hoping for a tiger, Bartek.
Bartek, you never mentioned what you kept thinking this was. you kept telling me for the last couple of times we talked, you're like, Tears of the Black Tiger. It keeps making me think of a certain video game.
Oh, that. For a while, I couldn't remember the title. I kept calling it Life of Black Tiger.
Which is an infamously bad video game, right?
Yeah, it was. I think it was like meant to be like a mobile game, but then for whatever reason, the official Sony PlayStation YouTube account uploaded a trailer for it because they were putting it on the PS4, and nobody knew why. And they are very hush-hush about why they did that. It's like a big mystery.
Yeah, and isn't that like guy who does that game? Isn't he like infamously? Is it the same guy I'm thinking of? Where it's like they keep putting new games up on the PlayStation Store every year, and they're just like.
I think it's a different guy.
That's a different guy.
I don't know.
But Tears of the Black Tiger is not that game, which
No.
was what was it? Tiger. What was that Tiger title?
Life of Black Tiger.
There's
Black
fans of Tears of the Black Tiger. It's like, oh, a video game adaptation, and they're like, no. That one does have a tiger in it though.
You play as the Black Tiger. You play as Black Tiger.
I thoroughly recommend this.
I recommend
movie.
it too. I was joking about the tiger thing.
I do thoroughly recommend this. It's I think it is a good entryway into some foreign cinema as well, and it made me keen to see other Thai films. Eventually, I did with Bad Genius, which is also a great. Just like I said, people check out that film. Just watch that one. That one's not weird like this, but it's very good.
Technically, Tears of the Black Tiger is the worst Thai film I've seen, but it's really good.
Yeah, I do.
I gotta see
recommend it.
more. Yeah, this is definitely opening up a whole world where I'm just like, I gotta see more of this stuff.
Yeah, people,
this was
if you know films, more
fantastic.
Thai films to check out, please.
Yeah, go
throw
for it.
them our
Send it.
way. I'm really unfamiliar. I only stumbled across both of these films through just my own curiosity of what was happening with those corners of the on the internet. So this is one of those where it's like, oh,
Yeah, don't hold back. Don't be shy. We're begging you.
Bartek's begging you.
We're begging you.
specifically.
We're in this together,
Please,
Ryan.
please.
Okay, please. Guys, final thoughts, and would you recommend?
Yeah, loved it. Recommend. Thumbs up. 5 bags of popcorn.
Whoa.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot.
Recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. It delights you every minute. Like there's always some strange new thing that they do, and I had a ball. I can't recommend it highly enough. We were actually talking to Sean today. Sean is the other host of our podcast, and I was like, Sean, you need to watch it today. It's that good. Like you need to make some time to watch it today.
Yep, Sean.
I don't know if he will, but Sean,
Message me
I hope
that
you-
you'll watch it, okay? And maybe we'll
please.
allow you on the podcast if you do that.
Hey, no, remember, I'm Sean's advocate this episode, and
Oh,
you
right,
can't,
yeah.
you can't,
Oh, we didn't make
you
fun
can't
of
hang
it.
that over him. Okay,
Okay.
it's either yes or no.
Okay.
that's
All
legally
right.
not allowed in America.
That's fine. Sean keeps making these tweets on that platform called Twitter where he's like, "You want me on a podcast? Ask me," and I did, and he never replied, so that's why he's not here.
Well,
I
don't.
gave him the chance, and he didn't fucking reply.
He never.
You know
he
what we
never
call-
said he
Tough.
would reply.
You know what? You know what we call that in Australia, or as Baz Luhrmann would call it, at the
Baz.
dog
Baz
act.
Luhrmann.
What a fucking
It's
dog
a
act,
dog
Sean.
act.
You watch your words,
dog
Ryan.
is
You watch your
A
words.
dog act.
That's a
Steve,
real
Did
phrase.
you hear that?
Yeah.
There was that film. What I think it was like
Dog act. That's pretty good. I like that.
That's
dog
a good
act.
phrase.
It is a good
great-
phrase. We have many good
What do we
phrases.
call that, Ben? What do we call that if someone just kind of
Such a dog act, Sean.
what was
I
that?
don't know. Like,
It was
like
outra-
I'd say an outrage. That's an outrage.
Oh, you guys are so like buttoned up. Oh, Sean, that was an outrage, and me, I'm going like the fucking dog act, bro.
No, I don't know if we have like a word for that when someone just acts a fool.
There
you
was
know,
that.
Steve, I just want to say that they could have just made that up and said, "Oh, this is what we say in Australia." You and I would have believed it.
It's true. We do say
Well,
that.
I've actually got an example that I want to tell of someone calling something dog. There was that film. I think it was The Mission.
I
The Robert De Niro, like, what was it called? The Mission.
I have no clue. I'm not up. Was he in Australia in this?
No,
Keep going with your thoughts.
There was a religious film called like The Mission or something like that begins with like a person tied to a raft and thrown down a river.
Okay.
And we watched that film in year 10 religious education because I went to a Catholic school. And there was one kid in the class who, when they saw that happen, he just called out loud, "Oh, that's so dog, man."
How could you do that to poor
I love that
Bobby De Niro?
I love that we keep sharing these weird little slice of life stories this episode. Like, now you're making me want to share more, but we got to eventually wrap up at some point because I don't know if anyone wants to hear. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to tell my story. So I work as a crossing guard. I help children cross the street for school, and I get paid way too much money for that because I work on the roads. So it's very dangerous, apparently. So I get good stuff. And one time I was standing there, and there's like a bunch of teenage boys being, dickheads, just talking, being lewd and crude.
Is it this story?
Yes, I love this story. And one of them was like really weirdly sexual. He's like, "Oh man, I've always wanted to be tased." He's like, "I think it would be hot to be just a taser hit me." I'm like, "Okay." And they were taking up the footpath, but I had no recourse to tell them to move because I didn't want to interact with them. They were annoying me. But then this woman was trying to walk past, and she was being blocked off by them. And she's like, "Excuse me, could you just move out of the way? Like, you're taking up the whole thing." Like, she got very annoyed with them. And these mates, they grabbed the dickhead one who was talking about wanting to be tased. They were like, "Oh, sorry, miss. Sorry. He doesn't speak English. He's French. He doesn't know what you're saying. We're so sorry. He's an exchange student." Really pulling it out of their ass. And she's like, "Oh, really? Is that the case?" And then she spoke French to him to try and one-up him. But then, this is one of the greatest things. He spoke French back. And she got confused and walked away, like that really dumbfounded her, walked away, and then he just simply said, "Oh, boys, French class is paying off." And I you know what, I respected him. I wanted to be that kid. That was one of the greatest interactions I've ever seen on the street. My hero, I never saw that kid again, and you know what, that's
I just
fine.
want to be an overpaid crossing guard, apparently. This sounds like a good career choice.
I don't think they take care of crossing guards here, Ben. I'm going to be honest.
They don't.
I think
I call them lollipop men.
We do call that. Well, that's if I had a lollipop, but I don't. I push the button that helps you go across the road. Lollipop is basically like the sign that they hold. Like
it's
on a
like
big
a
pole
construction
with...
stop sign kind of thing.
Yeah. But they call us because they look like big lollipops, so they call them.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Lollipop ladies or lollipop men. But I don't have a lollipop, so I'm just a crossing guard. So there you go.
You got a whistle though.
I don't right now. Because COVID.
Oh, shit.
They stripped him of the whistle.
I'm not
he
allowed
didn't use the whistle.
I guess I haven't seen it
appropriately.
in years.
No, we're not allowed whistles at the moment because of COVID. We have to wear masks, so we don't have whistles. So this is the world we live in. I'm so sorry, everybody.
I love
that's my
that.
end of Slice of Life now. Boys,
Now
Babylon boys.
it's going to be marked on Spotify as a COVID-19 episode.
Shut up, Ben. If you keep saying it, it will be.
What does that mean? That this has information about COVID? Or?
Yeah, shut up, Bartek. We'll talk about it later. I don't want this restricted.
Okay, but I have to wash my hands first.
Shut up. If we post this on YouTube and swear in the first 8 seconds, we'll get in trouble, okay? Shut up. Now, boys, Babylon boys, what have you got recommended for us? So you are our listening people's choice for next episode, because I know you guys always listen to the podcast. I'm always getting messages from Steve saying, "Wow, I really loved your fiery takes on the French comedy film Santa Claus is a Stinker," which is the Christmas film we did.
I did listen to a couple episodes just before this, and I did appreciate how much respect he threw onto Mouse Hunt. Thank you.
I mean, it's a great film. Great film.
It deserves it.
It is
Thank
it is a
you
great film.
for
I haven't watched that as
downloading.
an adult.
Well, you should. It's got weird actors turning up in it. There you go. Oh yeah, you're in this.
Yeah.
It's one of those. It's got William Hickey.
Its opening scene, I'll think about for the
It's
rest
one of the funniest things.
It's got William Hickey's last performance. I do love William Hickey. He was always great. I love that guy. But what is the film that you have lined up for us on the next episode? What have you got?
We talked about this for a while because we wanted to really give you something good.
Yeah.
And we wanted something that kind of reflected us a little bit, where we are in life, physically and emotionally and spiritually, and
But also, literally physically.
but also physically mostly. It's a very Midwestern movie. So Ben, if you want to.
Oh,
Yeah.
where you are. I thought you meant
Yeah,
like your body.
yeah.
Like, are you guys okay?
We're Midwesterners. We're full of cheese and beer.
Where
all
their
the
bodies
time.
are physically, yes. They recommended Philadelphia.
Or Mel
Which works
Mental,
on
yes.
this. No, go.
Great movie. Hey.
Gold member. We selected the documentary,
Ooh.
American Movie.
That is fantastic. It's been on my recent watch list because of certain things that have happened recently that we can talk about on the pod, Bartek. But American Movie, I think, we love doing documentaries from time to time too.
Us.
Yeah, so we'll add that American Movie. I'm aware of it, but I haven't seen it all in time. That's something I can discuss next time on the podcast. My weird history with this documentary, with this film. So thank you guys so much for recommending that, Bartek. Where can people find us on the internet? Just for those who do want to find our podcast that aren't already listening to it on the internet. See, sometimes we do send these via carrier pigeons to some people, so on a tape. So where can people find our podcast?
You can find us on the internet, full stop, at places such as Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. We always go by Spit and Polish Presents on those websites. You can contact us directly at spitandpolished@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can leave us a rating or a review, or I said but you can be on iTunes or any other of those podcast compilation websites, or podcatchers you call them.
Yeah.
And YouTube comments, I guess that's an option.
People do leave them, and then sometimes they delete them. So then when I get a notification saying I got one, then I press it and I can't read it anymore. Why do you guys do that?
Yes.
From what I could see, it was a nice comment. Why did you leave?
Yeah.
I wanted to know more about your history with Santa Claus is a stinker, whoever that person was from France.
Yeah.
That's what I asked. Why did you do that? Stop doing that. Stop it. No, but Babylon Boys, Steve and Ben and Not Sean, what about you? Where can people find the podcast?
Well, you can find our podcast at Last Best B5 on Twitter and Instagram. You could also find the comic that Steve and I do together.
That's right.
On Instagram at Phil Comic.
Phil,
Singular.
as in F-I-L-L?
As in P-H-I-L.
And is this related to the podcast or just something different entirely?
This is a
different beast in its own. Yeah.
See, I know this because I follow these things, but Bartek gave me a look like, wow, these guys have a podcast and a comic book
and
for their
a
podcast.
How do they find the time?
Yeah, like now they're entering the San Pell era of the comic book. Yeah. The Sam Pell.
That would be great, though, Ben. We should have a Babylon 5 comic that ties into our discussions. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Last Best B5. You could also email us lastbestb5 at gmail.com. We try to read everything that we get on the program, so go for it.
Yeah, these guys
send us an email about this podcast, and we'll
read it.
And that means we know that you're diehard fans of these guys because you went over to their podcast, or you're from theirs and you went over here. That's how we test it. Email them, tell them what you like or what you don't like. I always appreciate when guests dare to give their own emails on the pod, and or the brave ones who's like, our Patreon's also this. I'm like, oh, okay, you're really plugging yourself. Okay, guys. But yeah, just make sure to follow them. The B5, if you like B5 or you're just wanting some funny discussions about science fiction television, good times are happening over there. Bartek, I played you a bit of their podcast. Bartek, I think you've only really heard the reaction to the real truth of what Warren Keffer was all about.
Oh, yeah, I think you did send me that. Yeah.
I'm a good friend. I told Bartek when he first watched Babylon 5 that Warren Keffer's existence in the show, I didn't hold that back from him until the end of the season. I mean, what monster would do that?
Well, you didn't say anything, but then I brought him up and you're like, oh, yeah, and then you told me.
Yeah.
Encouraged them the whole time, the whole season. Promised them that they were getting more. We just constantly being like, you watch out.
And then all of us on the internet say, hold out for it. It's going to be a slow burn. And it was. He burned slowly. So that is it. That's all we've got for you listening people. So make sure to check out the next movie in the interim of time. And I guess be kind to each other. Remember when we used to sign off every episode with that, just telling everyone, remember to be kind to each other? And then we stopped doing that because we grew cold and cynical. It's a new year, Bartek, and I'm bringing the old ways back. Remember to be kind to each other, everyone.
Ooh, yeah, new year, new podcast. Yeah, let's make a big promise.
Okay, what do you want to promise?
In the last episode of this year, Ryan will sing.
A full number?
Ryan will sing.
Yeah, just like something out of a Baz Luhrmann movie.
Thank you. You know what? He almost said it normal then. Almost. He didn't have too much of a weird emphasis on it. Almost.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
And second promise, I will listen to Ryan sing.
Okay.
Don't want to just make you do everything.
Thanks for contributing to the podcast. You add the polish to our spin.